Carpenter versus Stephen Chitane.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michael Kern on behalf of American House Carpenter.
Your name, sir?
Stephen Chitane.
All right. We're here on the money claim. Have the parties had an opportunity to try to talk to each other about it, or?
Judge, I've tried to talk to Mr. Chitane about this. He really didn't want to hear what I had to say. He said, I just want to let the judge decide.
Is that right, sir?
Mostly. He never has offered a settlement. He's never offered a settlement.
Okay, what's the primary part of your claim?
They nearly doubled my rent, saying I didn't meet the friendship suite requirement. As far as I've been able to tell, no such document exists. They have not produced it for me. They have not produced it for court. And because of that, I feel that they overcharged me for a year, saying that they couldn't find me a roommate and want to charge me for a 2-bedroom, 2-occupant for the full cost.
Okay, so let me just make sure. You moved out. You moved out.
I'm sorry, Lord.
Have you moved out yet?
I've made arrangements and we should be out by the 25th without any problem.
Okay. So you're claiming that you overpaid them.
Yes,
How much are you claiming you overpaid?
December of 2022, my rent was $2,120. Starting in January, they increased it to $4,081. That's $1,961 per month times 12 equals $23,530 in overcharge.
Can I ask a question then? Why'd you pay it?
It's a term, it's automatically charged to my account, and I have a conservator. That's where I got this report on monthly payments.
All right. So you have a conservator?
Yes,
You currently have a conservator?
yes. He's negotiating my new residency as we speak.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Did your conservator say anything to you about the amount of rent you're being charged?
Well, 3 months after the fact that they started charging me, and called me and said, do you know that they doubled your rent? And I said, no, but I'll look into it. And he said he didn't feel it was right. And he wished me well in this negotiation that's about to happen.
You have a position on his claim, other than you don't owe him anything.
Yes, and I'm happy to fill in a few of the gaps in the facts
Yes.
here, Judge. So Mr. Chitane's lease is a 30-day month-to-month lease. And it states in the lease that upon providing written notice, American House can change the rent. That's what they did here. They provided him written notice that they were increasing his rent. And the reason that they increased his rent, he's correct. His apartment is meant to be a shared unit with a roommate. And because of the condition of the apartment, they were not able to rent it to another tenant. They had given him warnings about this and saying, can't rent this to somebody else because of the condition of the apartment. Then they provided him with a notice and they said, if you don't get the apartment in condition where we can rent it to somebody else, we're going to raise your rent effective in January. That's what they did. They were contacted by the conservator after the rent went up, and they explained to the conservator, here's the situation. We've increased his rent because we can't rent the bedroom to somebody else. And the conservator said, okay, I understand. And didn't stop the ACH payments, continued to allow the money to be drawn. After about a year, Mr. Chatane got the apartment in the condition that American House decided it was satisfactory to try to rent it to somebody else, and they reduced his rent back to the original amount.
Because they were able to rent.
They still weren't able to rent the room to somebody else, but they had asked him in writing, we want you to do A, B, C, and D to get the apartment in a condition where we believe we would be able to rent it. Because of other issues, they were not still able to rent the apartment to him, but they followed through with their side of the agreement and reduced his rent. Yeah.
Is that correct?
No,
Okay. Of course not. So what part of that's not the case?
it was not a question of them increasing the rent as in a normal annual increase in rent. They changed the terms of the contract from me living in a 2-bedroom, 2-occupant suite to saying you're now renting the whole
Mr.
suite.
Chatane, yes, but that was their claim, wasn't it?
Well, they never provided
Well,
me.
hold on,
I'm
hold
sorry.
on. That was their claim. It was supposed to be a 2-occupant suite.
Right.
Okay.
I had 4 roommates before this over the last 10 years. So,
Okay.
and they've all complimented me on how nice it looks. It boiled down, in my opinion, it boiled down to the question that I had masks from all over the world on the walls, and I had a very demure nude. And none of my roommates
Severe what?
nude, N-U-D-E, nude, naked woman.
Okay, I'm presuming,
Yes, and they
presuming a statue.
I'm sorry.
Was it a statue of a nude woman or
No,
actual
just
nude woman?
Just a painting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
Well, they demanded more room and they made me throw away my leather sleeper sofa because they wanted more room in the room. No one had ever complained about this.
Mr. Chatane,
Yes,
you would agree that there was supposed to be another occupant in the room?
absolutely. They
Okay.
will admit that I asked for a roommate.
Okay,
continuously.
but hold on.
Yeah.
They then did they send you information saying they couldn't lease the other room?
No,
So they never sent you anything?
I have included everything.
I didn't ask you what you included. Did they send you some notification regarding what you needed to do so they could rent the other portion?
No,
Never.
nothing. After
So-
repeated requests.
So if I set this for trial and they have that, you might admit that you don't have a claim.
Of course, but they've never provided it in the last 2 years.
Okay, so
It doesn't exist.
at some point, Mr. Chatane, your rent goes back down,
Right.
right? So why did it go back down?
Because I threatened to sue them for their mistreatment.
So they just lowered your rent.
Well, they made me do a number of things because they were going to increase the already increased rent another 10%.
So what were those things they were asking you to do?
They made me remove most of the artwork from the living space. They made me clean off my own dining room table where I had a sculpture. They made me throw out my
That
couch.
was- But hold on, this dining room table, the dining room table would have been shared by the dining room area would have been shared by the occupant.
Everything that's in the apartment is shared.
So they asked,
Silverware, you name it.
okay, so they asked you to remove
all the stuff that was on the
The dining room table, so that if there was somebody else there, they could use the dining room table.
And the prior
Exactly.
roommate did use it instead of going down to the dining room.
Okay. So what else did they ask you to do?
They asked me to remove half of the material in the linen closet, which was easily done. They made me move.
So that the other tenant, if they were there, could have space.
Right.
Okay.
They made me remove half of the material that was in the shared closet. It had never been a problem before. It had accumulated for 12 years, 10 years back then. And I was able to do it, but I gave away, I would guess, thousands of dollars worth of stuff. Yes.
Have you listened to what you've said to me?
You asked me to go on.
No, I know, but have you listened to what you've been telling?
They out of the blue produced
Mr.
an article that
Mr.
said,
Mr. Chastain.
yes,
How did you get notification that they needed you to do these things?
I never got notification without asking for something in writing. It shows that these friendship suites exist and what the requirements are. They gave me a list of things that were particular to my room, and it's not a general policy.
Mr. Chastain.
Yes. I'm sorry, if I speak loud, it's because I've got these.
I understand. How did you know what to do?
After corporate officers came out and said, this isn't a friendship suite, and I asked why, and they said it looks lived in. That's all they said.
Let me ask you this. When they talked about, let's say, the dining room table.
Yeah.
Did they tell you why you needed to clean off the dining room table?
Well, half the table was covered with my current mail, and they wanted everything off the table.
Mr. Chastain.
I'm sorry.
You need to answer my question. Did they tell you why you needed to clean off the table?
In case my roommate wanted to eat.
Yeah.
And I did.
Okay. But before that wasn't the case, right?
Not after my last roommate left. I told you.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this.
All right.
Did they tell you why they wanted you to empty out half of the closet?
Because it belongs to the other person. My potential roommate. And that was very difficult.
Mr. Chastain.
Yes.
If you're paying, let's say 2120 for a space that would, if the landlord could use it, would cover twice that amount. Right?
I didn't quite catch that.
They had another person in there. Presumably that person would be paying the same thing that you pay.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chastain, if you're using the whole thing,
I'm not.
If you're using the whole thing, then don't you have to pay for that?
But I'm not using.
But I didn't ask you that. If you were, let's put it this way, listen to my question.
All right.
If you were using the whole thing, you would agree, we could all agree that you would have to pay for it, right?
Yes, but I'd have.
If you're using it to the extent that they can't move somebody else in, you would be required to pay that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, as I'm looking at this, that's what happened. Follow me, Mr. Chastain. Here's what the deal is. You're using the whole unit, basically.
They're saying.
Whether you're admitting that you did, because you're admitting that when they notified you, you basically started putting it back in shape so they could put somebody else in it. You're using that property. And so if you're using it, Mr. Chatane, you have to pay for it.
They wouldn't tell me what I had to remove. I asked for 9 months, soon as it started happening, and they refused to give me something. I talked to corporate, they said it looked lived in. They finally gave me a list in October and said it had to be done by.
But I thought they didn't give you anything.
After I requested it and after corporate came and announced that it was not a friendship suite. They did produce after, I believe, 10 months. So they were.
So before then, Mr. Chatane,
Yes.
before then, you were just paying this amount of rent, right?
I was paying.
And had no idea why you were paying.
I don't quite understand what you're driving at. Could you give me a little bit more so I can respond?
You were paying twice what you had before, but had no idea why.
No. Everybody that lived with me thought we was very.
I didn't care about everybody else living with you. Your rent doubles.
Yes,
Your conservator knows,
yes,
right?
yes.
Your conservator tells you, right?
He tells me when the increase went up,
Okay.
that's all he told me.
And you're saying you paid it and didn't know why?
That is correct. It was because I wasn't meeting the requirements of a friendship suite, and they have never
Hey,
provided the
Okay, that's
requirements for a friendship suite.
Mr. Chatane. Let's get off of that phrase friendship suite. for a
Well,
moment.
it's key to this because.
No, it's not.
All right.
Because what's key to it, I don't care what you call it. What's key to it is there's supposed to be somebody else there.
Yes.
And there can't be because you are using the other part of the apartment.
A tiny part, nothing in its bedroom or anything.
But you're using it to the extent that they can't put somebody else in, Mr. Chatane.
Well, that's not true because I've had 4 roommates and nothing has changed.
Judge, this is the letter that Mr. Chatane attached to his own pleadings. It's dated November 30th, 2022. And
Which exhibit?
it's Exhibit I to his own pleadings. Maybe it's
You said it's November 30th?
November 30th, 2022.
Got it.
It says, Dear Steve, as you know, you currently reside in a friendship suite. We have had conversations in the past asking you to clean out the apartment in order for someone else to be able to move in. At this time, we feel that we can no longer offer this as a friendship suite or even be able to show to prospective residents due to the smoke odor, lack of space, and condition of the apartment inside and outside. All of the above are considered lease violations. Then it goes on to indicate how they're going to raise his rent, and they give him until basically the end of December to try to get this resolved. Starting January 1st, his rent's going to go up. So they put him on notice of this, and he attached it to, so obviously he had a copy of it because he attached it to his own pleadings.
See it?
Well, from my point of view, they're making a lot of claims, sir.
Mr.
I see
Mr.
letters here.
Okay, and Mr. Chatane, you would agree with me?
No,
That-
not at all. The
Okay.
smoke odor, lack of space, and condition of the apartment inside and out is utterly false.
Why'd you?
And they took my apartment.
Mr. Chatane,
Yes.
You told me they never sent you anything.
With regard to why I'm not meeting a friendship suite.
Mr. Chatane, what does that letter say? Doesn't it tell, doesn't it?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a question. What does that say?
I don't really know how to respond. You know,
Well, you're
I've lived here 10
you're
years.
going to need to respond to my question.
all right,
What does that letter say to you?
it says my apartment doesn't meet the requirements of friendship suite, and therefore we're doubling your rent. That's what it says.
And it tells you why.
These, if you look at these,
Mr. Chatane,
smoke over.
Mr. Chatane,
I don't smoke.
it tells you why, doesn't it?
They never gave me anything in 9 months requesting what I need to do for a friendship suite. These 3 things, that's their opinion. Fine. Show me the friendship suite requirements. And they didn't have any. They don't have any now. They made up this list particular to me. It's not a policy and it's not in my lease.
Judge, what I would say is that it's not relevant whether or not any of that stuff is in his lease. What is in his lease is that they have the right to increase his rent with 30 days notice, and they gave him the notice.
Yeah. You realize that, Mr. Chatane?
Well, they increased it. I know that. For 9 months, they didn't tell me why. These are not reasons.
But hold on, Mr. Chatane. Understand something. They could have increased your rent and not given you any reason why.
I'm sorry?
They could have increased your rent and not given you any reason why. On 30 days notice, they could increase your rent. They don't even have to tell you why they're doing it.
Well, that would wind up in court too, then, I guess.
And you'd lose.
I'm sorry?
And you would lose.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. So you can lose.
No,
Oh.
to settle the matter. If you say I have no claim, fine. I'll
Well,
stop here.
I'm going to tell you, I don't see where you have a claim. You're telling me things that aren't true. You're telling me they didn't send you anything saying what they were doing. Do not interrupt me. You told me that. You told me that you did not know.
That I was in a friendship suite. I did not know. I in the letter I sent to you, I said, I never heard of it before. Nobody I talked to ever heard about this. If it had been in the lease or if they sent me the requirements, look at what they asked me to do compared to these 3 vague things they listed in this letter. Look at them. They're specific things. You can't have your toothbrush and toothpaste on the sink. They just made up a bunch of stuff. Ask them to produce the document that says what a friendship suite is.
Mr. Chatane, why do you have a conservator?
I don't. I had some mental issues in the past. 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And at that time, I was not capable of paying my bills. So the conservators worked out. It's not horribly expensive. And he, just like American House takes care of all my needs for the telephone, my conservator took care of all of my needs. So, I don't have any problem having a conservator.
That conservatorship is still pending.
I'm sorry?
The conservatorship is still pending through the court.
No. I've had the conservator court approved 12 years ago when I first moved into American House.
Was that approved through Washtenaw County?
I'm sorry?
Was it through Washtenaw County that the conservator was appointed?
Yes.
Who initiated the petition for appointment of the conservator? Do you know?
I talked to the manager then, and then my conservator took care of the paperwork. I signed the lease back then.
No. I'm talking about the case where you had a conservator appointed.
Yes.
Who initiated that case?
Well, I asked the court to appoint a conservator for me.
So you started it?
I believe so. I don't know who else would have. That was a long time ago, sir.
And I'm just going to tell you this because have you talked to your conservator about this?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. You don't manage your financial affairs.
No.
And so did you tell your conservator that you were filing a claim that might affect your financial position?
Might affect it? How so? He knows I'm here. He asked if he should be present.
And what did you tell them?
I thought we were going into your chambers and I told him I didn't think it was necessary.
Oh, I think it's absolutely necessary.
Can I ask why?
Because you don't manage your own financial affairs and you filed a suit for money damages.
I'm not a stupid man.
I never said that you were.
I suffered for a year because they wouldn't tell me what I needed to
Mr.
do.
Chattain, I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just pointing out the fact that you do not manage your own financial affairs.
Correct.
And there is an individual that does manage your financial affairs.
Correct.
What you have filed here has an impact on your financial affairs. And so your conservator should be involved.
Well, he told me just yesterday that if I were to prevail, that the amount should be made out to me with Jim Baker as a conservator.
I know. What happens if they file a claim and you end up owing money?
I asked the court to talk to my conservator. He takes care of my financial affairs.
Said you had a conservator for 12 years?
Yes.
And he knows that you filed a counterclaim.
Yes.
Did your conservator say anything about maybe you having
Having
an attorney?
no.
That date is the 25th. No, that's the right date. They file it then. Need something 10 days after that for a trial.
December trial, 16,
16.
Monday, 16.
No, that's fine. That will work. But if they have to file the red, it can be signed and executed. 16.
Yes.
Mr. Chastain, have you thought about getting an attorney?
No,
Okay. So I think that you might want to take a look at it.
if you turn me down,
No.
get stuck. I don't see any reason to spend more money on this issue. If they think that they didn't lie by saying I didn't meet the requirements of this word I'm not supposed to use, where's document? That's all I ever asked for, so I can comply with it. And as it got down to the end of the year, they started making demands and they were going to increase my rate even more. So I worked very hard for 2 months to meet their requirements. That isn't a policy. It was specific to my place. And that's not a policy. They say they could have said, we reserve the right that you meet these, and everything would have been fine. It never would have arisen. I have no more furniture in my apartment now than I did when I moved in 12 years ago. And I've had 4 roommates. How can they say that I don't have enough space? Anytime any of them ask me.
Mr. Chastain,
Yes,
you told me that the apartment was supposed to have another person.
yes,
You've also told me that you had things in there that would prevent another person from having basically half of that unit. Why you had it, I'm not even worried about that. It doesn't matter to me. They could not put another person in. They then sent you information of what they saw as lease violations and further informed you that they were going to raise your rent.
yes.
You may not like it, but I don't see anything that they've done that's wrong.
It seems to me that if they claim that I don't read requirements and they have no requirements on writing, I don't see how that's legal. I have a real problem with that.
Okay, so this is the final settlement conference. You want me to set it for trial, but I'm going to advise you of something before you answer that. They can ask the court to impose sanctions for the filing of a frivolous claim.
If you say so, I don't consider this frivolous. I've got the documentation right here.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm going to advise you that they could ask me to do that and to basically impose sanctions for their attorney's time and for everything else. I would also tell you that I don't see, based upon listening to you, based upon looking at the documentation, that you have a colorable claim in this case. But if what you want me to do, if you want me to set it for trial, I will set it for trial.
I was hoping, and I was under the understanding that I asked for a summary judgment in this matter, so it would end now. Either I win, lose, or you demand that we have arbitration. And that's fine with me. I don't want to spend any more time with this. I think I've been wrong. They've treated me.
And what I would suggest, because they haven't made a money claim against you, what I would suggest, Mr. Chastain, is that you might want to consider dismissing this case against them.
If that's your advice, I'll.
No, yeah, you know what? Mr. Stain, you don't have to. I'm going to make that suggestion to you. I'm telling you, I don't see anything that gives you a colorable claim.
I'd like you to just drop the case.
Do you want me to dismiss the case?
Yes.
The counterclaim. Any objection?
I have no objection to the counterclaim being dismissed.
Counterclaim is dismissed. I'm going to do that with prejudice as to the counterclaim. Mr. Chattain, the only thing that I would issue, because the possession issue, they can issue a writ to have you removed. You're going to be out by the 25th, you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Judge, do you need me to file anything with the court with regards to the dismissal of the counterclaim? Or the court handle that?
Would you just prepare an order, and maybe you could find a handwritten one that just says defendant is dismissing his counterclaim.
Okay.
That's
You would need to
something
design that then?
If you get it to me right now, I can just sign off on it.
I don't have a form for that.
You pull up a general dismissal form, or is there one out at the clerk's office? We'll get a form, counsel.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chattain. Mr. Chattain.
Yes.
Come here.
Yes, sir.
As you've been treated with respect in this courtroom,
Yes.
and I haven't allowed anybody to say anything to you,
Okay.
you will not walk out and address anybody in this courtroom that may be associated with the plaintiff in that fashion that I just heard.
Fair enough.
I want you to turn around and I want you to apologize.
I apologize.
You may remove the headset and you may leave quietly.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Why are all these other people here? I'm done. I'm going to the Bahamas. Goodbye. No.